Okay, so it's Sunday. We're actually on the line to Australia at the moment. Vossy has very kindly, I contacted Vossy a couple of days ago, obviously with the NRL starting again, and Vossy was very kind enough. He immediately said, love to. And for that, that's brilliant. We really appreciate it. So, Vossy, you've just come off the back of the Penrith versus Newcastle match, and what a match it was.
Oh, just incredible. Look, I actually feel like got to the last, it's been such a build-up to this. We've been working what's the NRL called Project Apollo, a May 28 resumption date to our competition. The last rugby league we played was March 22, and we had this resumption date of May 28. Well, we got there, and we've had 4 amazing days of rugby league, and I guess I was a little bit rusty as a caller, went back into it, and then my third game for the weekend was this afternoon and ended up with a 90-minute golden point thriller between Penrith and Newcastle. Just an extraordinary game, and 14 all. Newcastle, just a really quick story on the match. Newcastle had their captain, Mitchell Pearce, knocked out 4.5 minutes into the game. They're already playing without their star fullback, Kalen Ponga. Then they lose their hooker, Connor Watson, inside the first 15 minutes. They had 3 players on debut. They had 4 players who played less than 10 games in their career. They trailed 14-0 and fought back to get a 90-minute draw. It was an extraordinary game of rugby league, and let's have more of it. It's just so good to have the game back, but that was, in any time, just an amazing game of rugby league. It's the best sport on the planet, guys. I've said that before.
So, obviously, you've been on lockdown yourself. How do you sort of prepare when we've been asking the players this, all of a sudden, the game finishes, everyone's in their own house. How do you actually prepare to broadcast and do so many over the opening weekend as well?
Well, it's an interesting situation. I work for Fox League in Australia, which is the subscription television partner of the rugby league. And I also do a show called The Fan. Now, The Fan, we worked our butts off through late January, early February, interviewing players from all 16 clubs. So I'd essentially done hundreds and hundreds of pieces. So I was able to keep my show going all the way through lockdown. Every week there was a new episode of The Fan on. And then the bosses at Fox League decided, well, we don't have any live football to call, so how about we call old games? And we throw it out to the fans. What games would you like to see and hear again? And I went back and called games back as far back to the early 80s and loved it. It was very different going into the studio to call a game where you know the result and it's written into the history books. But to see some of to see Adrian Morley's performance, I recall the 2003 grand final, the Panthers and the Roosters. Adrian Morley's performance on a beaten side was something exceptional. Absolutely enforcer's role, recalling matches involving the great Paul Harrigan and Mark Carroll, their old clashes. And as I say, the early 80s where Parramatta was the dominant force. Tom Raudonikis playing for Newtown. So I did have a bit of calling through the break, but it's nothing like the real thing, which I've just done over the past weekend. And I feel a bit rusty now. I feel like I need a good cup of tea and with some lemon or honey in it. And as for the notes, I sit here, this is my office. I could pan you around if you like and show you. I've got books and books and books. Most of those are rugby league books. I did all my own notes, for the 3 games over the weekend. So I really studied and made sure that I was back into it. But it's my job and I feel very blessed. And I must say, a lot of people have lost their jobs over here in the media over the last couple of months. And I feel very blessed to have a job and a job that I love so much.
And, in a normal season, I suppose you're around the players, you're around the coaches, you're around the fans. Do you feel isolated in terms of that? Or do you feel through social media you're still able to keep in touch?
Yeah, social media has been a wonderful thing, really. That has maintained the contact and, I've answered any number of questions over the last couple of months. What I will say is that I really felt a sense of duty there going to games. Like last night, I went along to Bankwest Stadium, which is home ground to 5 teams after lockdown. It's normally Parramatta's home ground, but the Sharks are playing their home games there, the Roosters, the Rabbitohs, the Tigers. Normally it's their home ground, but they were the away team last night. So I went along to Parramatta Stadium and I felt like I had a sense of duty that I was representing everyone. Like the fans are locked out at the moment. So there's a role to be even better at what you do than normal, because you have to take the people sitting in their lounge room to the ground. And, you know, we have the sound effects, we have the fake crowd audio over our matches on Fox League. There's no hiding that. We have cardboard cutouts in the grandstands, images of people so they can look like they're there. But then after the game, I walked out. It was only 15 minutes after full time, and basically you got to clear the venue. And it was eerie. There was just no one around. It was just like, hang on, there's you know, after a game, people, they're buzzing and there's traffic. There was nothing. I got home in 15 minutes. It was a really strange experience, very surreal. But that's how it's going to be for the short term. I wish it was happening for you guys. I really do. I wish your rugby league could be back on as well. But these are very strange times. But I say we've just got to do whatever it takes. I've had my temperature taken 3 times this weekend to cover matches. There's very strict protocols, and audio technicians, they come in, they're wearing face masks. I have to turn away when you're getting mic'd up and all those sorts of things. Well, if that's what we've got to do, they're very small disruptions to get our great game back on the park and back on the television screens and into people's lounge rooms.
So when you're sat in the stadium, can you hear the fake noise, the crowd, or is that on the broadcast itself? What do you actually hear?
Yeah, well, before lockdown, the last weekend, so we only had 2 rounds of the NRL before lockdown. The first round of rugby league, we had crowd in, but by round 2, it was total shutout. And at that stage, no, we hadn't even tested the technology or how we were going to put sound effects. So I did grounds absolutely cavernous, empty in round 2. And I must say that it's a lot easier to call the games with the crowd effects, which is quite, it's not just a simple, you know, I've got crowd effects like, you know, a sitcom, you know, comedy or laughing. No, there's a lot of effort that's gone into the crowd actually reacting to different passages of play. So it takes a pretty skilled person on the audio desk, you know, to respond to a referee's decision, to, you know, respond to a drop ball, to respond to a try. So he's writing all sorts of levels. It made my job of calling so much easier. I'm an idiot. I throw my arms around and stand up and carry on like a madman when I'm calling, but I just totally got absorbed by the game, such as today, but the other 2 matches I called over the weekend as well. I just got totally into it and sort of lost the fact that there was no real crowd there.
And the sound guy, so is he like the conductor of an orchestra, is watching what's happening, is different levels?
Yeah, 100%. I've heard, look, I haven't watched any of the Bundesliga. They tell me that they don't have the crowd effects on the broadcast. Is that right? Well, I've got to say, from our first weekend, while there's been some, you know, critics of it saying, oh, this is ridiculous, I think it helps the viewing. You know, everyone out here has big TVs these days. A lot of people have the surround sound systems. It adds to the enjoyment of the game. And when there's no atmosphere at all and all you're hearing is the referee and the hits, well, it's interesting. It's different. But I'd much rather have crowd effects there, and I think they've done a really good job. And I have
to agree, Vossy. I've only missed 1 game, and that was the Dragons and the Warriors, and I think I'm pretty grateful that I did miss it. It was probably the worst game by a mile, but I have to agree. I was skeptical when I heard that they were going to do the crowd noises. I thought just let it be as it is. But the more games I've watched, you know, like Gary says, the orchestration from the guys, you know, in the box or whatever, it must be pinpoint accurate too. You know, if they press the wrong button to create the wrong noise at the wrong time, it would kind of lose the flow of the game for the viewer. You know, and I think they've done a really good job of it.
Yeah, we'll do a review obviously tomorrow. The producers at Fox League, and there were times that you thought, oh, that's a little bit loud, the crowd. Like, that wouldn't be the actual reaction to that. But the only time as a viewer, and I watched, you know, I worked on 3 games and I've watched the other 5, is when you do go awfully wide and you realise there is no one there. You know, you look at empty seats and you're hearing the crowd go. But most of the time, the director has actually changed the mode in which we shoot. We're shooting a lot tighter. We're staying on the ruck and not bringing the crowd shot or the seats into play too often. So I think it's been a horses for courses attitude that said, all right, this is the way we've got to do things. And I'm with you, Chris. I think that both as a viewer and as a commentator, I'm a fan first and foremost. I think it's a winner. And I think that as other sporting codes around the world come back in, I think you'd be mad not to do it, to be honest. I really do.
And actually, I don't know if you've heard the Huddersfield cowbells. famous in the UK, so maybe it's a good thing that we maybe drown those out as well. Listen,
hey, Gary, for the record, I can't have you say that, mate. I'm a Huddersfield boy at heart, and I'm a
That's
Geordie
right.
boy. I'm a Huddersfield boy, mate. Those Huddersfield fans will be throwing daggers at me the next time they see me if I let you get away with saying that. So there's nothing wrong with the Cowbell Army. I know they're in the minority, and I know they're probably one of the lowest in terms of attendance supporter clubs in Super League, but they are a good bunch, guys. So don't be throwing stones, please.
I'm exaggerating for effect. I think anybody who can go along to a match and make some noise, fair play to them. Vossy, do you think there'll be anything when crowds come back, whenever that might be? Do you think there might be something that will be kept, whether it's a crowd noise, whether it's a tighter angles, from a production point of view? Has it changed?
That's a good question. Because obviously there's games that you play out here at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane always draws at least 30,000, the crowd, on a regular basis. The Cowboys have their new stadium up in Townsville. Well, they're going to draw 25,000 every time they play. But then you've got your other clubs that are struggling, and you'll have a crowd of less than 10,000, mate. No, I'm probably for it. I'm probably for it, having that little soundtrack, as long as we don't go over the top. Look, I think it adds to the viewer's experience. So, you know what I did? I listened to the critics, and I saw people posting messages, this is ridiculous, I don't like this. To me, it was a lot like when cricket, the broadcast of cricket changed from only watching from the one end, the cameras, and people say, no, I want to watch from behind the bowler at one end and then I watch behind the keeper at the other. No, look, I say this is a positive change. I think there's far more positives than negatives. I think anything that improves the viewer experience, then let's go for it. Last night on Fox League, we introduced a camera which we called Fox Air, and it was a camera on 140 metres of cable all along the field that could travel up to 70 k's an hour, and it just gave these sweeping shots all the way down, so we could be perfectly in line of a forward pass at any point of the field. I think that's here to stay. I just love new stuff like that. There are hits and misses with technology. I think what we've done out of lockdown on this first weekend, I know it's only one weekend, I think everything has been a winner.
Yes, from a coach's perspective,
sorry, guys, just on Vossy's point there, guys. Like you said on your intro, Vossy, we have the greatest game. So, I think unless it's broken, you don't have to fix it. And I like all the new technology and the stuff that we're talking about. It's fairly innovative, especially in these unprecedented times. But I thought they used that camera angle a few too many times. It was I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but it was literally the kickoff of the game. And I can't remember. I've watched that many games in the last 3 days. The kickoff was on that special kind of on a zip wire camera, and I just thought, it was unnecessary, So I think we've got to get the balance right also.
100%. No, I agree with that. And I'll take that feedback back to them too. No, I worked on the game and thought, well, it's just a brilliant angle. I know there was a specific case of a pass that we were able to roll in a replay. Like normally with a forward pass, say 30 metres out from the goal line, you're always going to have an angle. There's always going to be angle. Corner cameras in the middle, the camera is exactly in line with it. We were able to roll in a replay and say, yep, that pass was forward. We had our doubts, but then the moment we had the camera there, no, out of the hand, that was thrown forward. Referee 100% right. So it was just good to have that. I mean, in the NFL, they have those cameras, always have, that they can be in line with every line of scrimmage all the way through the play. We're a different sport, but you're right, Chris, about the balance. And it's the same with the crowd. As I mentioned, at times I thought, that's a bit loud, but, the audio desk guys under pressure. So, for a first weekend, I thought they did pretty well. And I think, the proof is in the pudding. I know everyone's starved of sport at the moment, but I will tell you guys in advance, and we won't know final numbers until tomorrow, but you will find Thursday night, for instance, was the highest rating regular season game since 2014. And the audience across the board on subscription television on Fox League will be the biggest ever for 8 games. So, there's obviously people were good to have football back, but they also liked what they saw, even though most of the games were blowouts. The scorelines were blowouts in most of the games.
Chris, we've been talking earlier about some of the rule changes. Do you want to have a conversation with Vossy about some of the new rule changes? Yeah,
look, it's interesting. It'd be interesting to get Vossy's point of view from it. And numbers in terms of what he's just describing there. The viewer figures and the stuff off Fox. And I've had the Fox app on my phone, laptop, iPad for as long as it's been out now, because I don't miss a game that way. Fortunately, it's on Sky Sports at the minute, but I'm not sure how long Sky Sports are going to show all the games. And again, there's been a couple of rule changes, and I suppose you just mentioned about scorelines going out, and I think probably the main reason that some of the scorelines have blown out is because of the new 6 again rule as well. We're finding out about the fitness and the core fitness of a lot of the teams in the NRL at the minute, and going to the Para and Brisbane game, I thought that they were fairly evenly matched. I know Para looking the goods this year, but that Brisbane side right the way through are really strong, but they ended up getting absolutely put to the sword. And it would be interesting when we've had a couple of weeks, a couple of rounds of games, so we can get a bit of context to the statistics. But I've seen the number of tries that have been scored after the 6 again, is through the roof. I don't know what your opinion on that is, but it makes for a much more exciting game from a fan and a viewer's point of view.
Yeah, okay. A few observations, and this has been shared by a few people. And I would love this to get to England and across the UK. Rugby union, the sport of rugby union would now be, am I allowed to say shitting themselves? In light of the speed of the game picked up in NRL, the ball in play, in rugby union out here, they're getting down to games where the ball's in play for only 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We've just found a little tweak in the rules out here in rugby league with this set restart where you don't blow a penalty, so you don't have the stoppage. So a set restart will happen if the bloke is held down a little long, crowding, hand on the ball, those sorts of things. You don't blow a penalty, set restart, play continues. It's one less stoppage. So the penalty count at the end of 80 minutes might have only been 4-2, and you think 6 penalties, but there's been 6 set restarts. So in a normal course of events, that would have been 12 stoppages in the game.
Yeah.
We've now only got half as many stoppages. Play continues, ball in play for longer. Better product. And
I totally agree, mate.
The little men. Imagine Chris Thorman, 2004 at Parramatta, taking advantage of the tired big men because they're having to suddenly defend. Or playmakers having to react. They might be thinking, this is tackle 5, and then all of a sudden the ref goes, set restart. So you're back to tackle 1. So you're going to do a little shift play to the left, go to the edge on the last tackle, or put a kick to the corner. Suddenly it's a heads-up play. Hang on, we've got a full set here. Their marker's only got 1 marker there. Let's run, and the playmaker thoroughly comes back to the forefront again. The little man and the smart player, like Chris Thorman.
Look, I agree. For large parts that I agree, and for us as a sport to evolve, we have to kind of think about these things as well, because especially in this country, rugby union is ahead of us in terms of the financial point of view, and especially the international game too. But if we could implement a similar sort of change, anybody that's viewing this, Vossy at 3 p.m. we've got Fui Moi Moi on, who I know you'll be a big fan of from his time in the NRL and at Parramatta, and Fui would be absolutely shaking his head at this rule change right now. I guarantee it. But from a coaching point of view, we have to think of the evolution of our sport, and I think it's been a really good one. But I think we can't judge it after 1 round of games. We have to judge it after 3, 4, 5 rounds.
You're right, Chris, because we had so many blowouts. I mean, I'd like to see look, and perhaps the game I did this afternoon is the first test that the set restart was put away when the game really got down to the championship minutes, and I don't want that. I don't want the last 15 minutes to be ruled refereed differently to the rest of the game. And that was the test of it today. So we had no set restarts late in the game or in golden point. So there's going to be some complaints, I think, from coaches on that. But, again, more positives. Like in everything we've introduced this weekend, more positives than negatives. Look at the game of George Williams. He played Saturday night Australian time for Canberra. Smart player, suddenly with more opportunity, tired forwards, against one of the best teams in the league, Melbourne. George Williams had his best game. That's his third game in the NFL. That's the best I've ever seen George Williams play, full stop.
We do need to talk about Canberra and George Williams, but at the same time, I think, and surprisingly, it wasn't a blowout scoreline, but for Melbourne to be, pointless in the second half, for me, I thought Melbourne mismanaged the new rule change as poorly as anybody, I read a bit on social media about Cam Smith and stuff like that, and, Cam Smith is not Damien Cook. He's 30 odd. He's played 400 NRL games, and I think he's the greatest player in the history of our sport, no doubt. But I think he might potentially get found out on this new rule because he's not he's not one of those explosive ball runners that can, like George Williams, like Damien Cook, like there's a number of them in the NRL. But I just thought it was interesting that Melbourne mismanaged it a little bit, and Canberra totally took advantage of that, especially with Whiten on the left and Williams on the right. You're not going to get any better ball carriers, ball running threat to halfbacks who will exploit this rule to the nth degree. So I thought it was really good.
3 times in a row, Canberra's beaten Melbourne in Melbourne. I mean, that is unheard of, absolutely unheard of in the Craig Bellamy era, and he's been coaching now for closer to 20 years than 10. So extraordinary report. Josh Hodgson as well. Seriously, he should be in jail for stealing. I mean, he is the greatest ball stealer this game has ever known. Just amazing. And John Bateman not back yet on the field. Lot to like. We could have a whole load of Englishmen playing in the grand final again this year. Some really good signs there. And you're right about adapting to those tweaks of the rules. No one had any time to do a dress rehearsal. You couldn't even, because of lockdown and travel restrictions, teams couldn't even have training sessions with referees on hand to talk them through or do a little dress rehearsal of what to expect. So really smart on Canberra's part, on George Williams' part, and some of the other sides like Parramatta with Mitchell Moses, their halfback. Very, very clever the way they adapted so quickly.
Well, let's hope there are at least 5 Englishmen if that Canberra team get to the grand final. But I was talking to my mate Simon Wolford, about Canberra, and obviously Simon's always got an eye on the Canberra performances and stuff. And he messaged me and he said, "What about how good George Williams was?" And I said he was very good, and Jack White was equally as good. But the reason that those two as running halves don't have to they're not an old school general. They don't have to march their team around the field and play from certain points. They kind of react to what Josh Hodgson does. So I just think the balance of that Canberra side with Josh Hodgson dictating everything, and then George Williams and Jack White and Charles Nicoll-Klokstad just benefiting off the back of that. It just makes them such a scary team,
Yeah, honestly, I'd love to see someone like a Danny Richardson. I'm a huge fan of his. I would love to see him under this rule. To see, I think he could be a sensation. Suddenly one of those reactionary players could take off in a way. Hardacre at his best would react to this and be so good about it. But these are just things that. And I've never been one, and you all know that I've never been one to say Super League should copy everything the NRL does, because we get plenty wrong. We get plenty wrong. I'm saying have a real close look at what we're doing here right now, because I think this time we might be on a winner.
I couldn't agree more, Vossy. I mean, look, I don't want to talk too much. I'm happy to sit in your company and just listen to some of your tales. I was going to talk if God's given me the opportunity to begin with. You look at in our country, you've had Eddie Waring and Ray French, and who doesn't love Ray Warren? But I suppose Vossy is the next heir apparent to being the voice of rugby league. So we're really grateful that you're on here, Vossy. But just talking about Englishmen and the lads that would be capable of playing in the NRL and capable of kind of taking advantage of this new rule change, but I don't think there'd be anyone better than Johnny Lomax. Because Johnny is very similar to George Williams or Jack White, like running threat, but his game has evolved totally as well. And Danny Richardson, I agree. Look, Danny's got a bit of stuff to work on in terms of his defensive capabilities, but Danny's halfback partner at Castleford is this year. Jake Truman is the one, honestly. Like he is special, that boy. And talk about being the full package. You saw George Williams belt the shit out of Ryan Pappenhausen, and everyone's going nuts. George has been doing that since he was 15, 16 in the academy at Wigan, and Jake Truman is exactly the same. So I mean, I hope we get a chance to kind of watch them evolve their game in Super League, but I'd love to see those boys go down under and kill it like George is,
See, Sam Tompkins at his best. And I thought he got a bit of a rough deal when he came out here, and I think that was proven. He had the knee injury and then took him so long to come back and getting on in years. But at his best, beautiful first touch, silky skills, reacts in front. Those players that can react like that, they're the ones that are going to excel. I'm sure of that. I mean, and I think that will carry on until I know the coaches love to bend the rules, Chris, and I'm saying you love to cheat. Coaches love to cheat. It's in your makeup. you try and bend the rules. But I think it's gonna be really hard for you to find, if the referee stays solid on this set restart infringement, 6 to go. It's going to be very hard for the coaches to work a way around this, because you can't slow the ruck down. If the referees stay vigilant, the team with the ball, literally could have 18 tackles in a row. If, you try to slow them down and the ref keeps saying 6 to go, they'll work their way up the field and they will find the tied defender, and they will get the little man with a good feet running at them, step, and off they go. So, again,
that's why I keep saying that it's really important to judge this particular rule change after a number of rounds, because you're guaranteed that someone like Trent Robinson will find a way of manipulating it and twisting it and tweaking it and turning it, because I've got a lot of time for Trent Robinson. He speaks a lot of sense, and he often thinks out the box. But somebody like Trent Robinson will find, if it's possible. I suppose it's if it's not possible, and Trent Robinson can't find a way of manipulating, we've cracked it, haven't we?
Well, the other thing too is, these days they keep stats on everything, but so the clubs keep stats on referees. Yeah. So they will look at the ruck speed when there's certain referees. They will know the referees that they can put the envelope with, and they will know the others that are a little tougher. And I think one referee well known to our listeners now, Ashley Klein. I don't think Ashley Klein applied the set restart as tough as some others. Now, I'm not going to be critical this weekend because they've had no time to prepare. They can only have games amongst themselves and say, this is what we're going to do. So, and the same today with Ben Cummins. I don't think he applied it. He's been one of the leading referees in our game for a number of years. So also give the referees a little time they'll review their performance tomorrow and say, well, I probably could have signal, set restart there or there or there. They'll do their own review. So we'll all get used to it. But, I just think a real game changer what we have done. We've gone back from 2 referees to 1. We're trying to eliminate the wrestle. It's the real blight on the game, isn't it? The wrestle, that's something that no one says has been good for the game. We've taken a step to try and reduce it. I don't know whether we can eliminate it, but we've certainly taken a step to reduce the wrestle. That has to be a good thing.
Has there been any kickback against the one ref, or has it gone down pretty well?
No, look, I don't think you'd be able to do the set restart anyway if you had 2 referees. You just have to have one voice out on the field. They've thrown it back to the sideline officials to have a little bit more input into the game. So just to explain how it will work is that the near side touch judge now is more responsible for what's happening in the ruck, and the far side touch judge, the touch judge furthest away from the play, he's back on the 10-metre line, helping keep the teams back there 10 metres. So between the 3 of them, they're working more as a solid unit, but you've just got that one voice of the control referee, and he won't referee over the ruck. He'll always go back to the 10 metres as well. So, give them a little time to get into it. But look, if again, on face value, what I've seen, low penalty counts with an equivalent tally of set restarts. Again, it's half as many stoppages as what we had before, and the outcome of that, the consequence of that is again the speed men, a little bit more fatigue. The interchange is still the same. The big forwards caught napping. Creates opportunities, but creates opportunities out of the blue. I love that spontaneous play, and we saw it right across the weekend. So onwards and upwards from here. I reckon, fellas, onwards and upwards.
Chris, just to never mind these fancy pants Australians, if we talk about League One or even the Championship, set restart, who would be the type of player that you've mentioned, some sort of Super League and NRL?
Who
would be the player?
Who would take advantage of it?
Yeah.
Oh, mate, well, we have little Blaine Marwood off the bench, guys, don't we? At the minute, and Vossy might remember his dad Dean, who played in the Super League for Workington back in 96, 97, guys, is that right? But Blaine is very explosive, quite diminutive, but he has some real natural instincts that are almost uncoachable. And I could see Blaine being exploited. Sean Penkovich, who we released at the end of last year, Penky would be another one. Penky is very frustrating to coach at times because he goes off script and stuff like that, you know, and I can totally relate to it because I often did that in my early 20s, you know. But from manipulating this new rule, I think the quick off the mark blokes, they're really smart, you know, just having a good understanding of, you know, almost the ones that were really good at playing touch and pass guys, you know. Off the top of my head, it would be Blaine being able to do something like Penke, who obviously plays for Rochdale now. But you could probably go through teams, and if that rule change came into England and came, you know, filtered down from Super League, Championship, League One, then from my point of view as a coach, I would have to totally consider how my interchange, my start and halfbacks and stuff like that. You know, I know I don't have a massive pool talent, guys, but it's certainly something in terms of our training and our preparation and stuff. It's something that we'd have to really look into. And like the NRL, they haven't had a great deal of time to think about it. I think the more interesting thing is it's offensively. You know, the good players will just get it. Like George Williams, he just got it. He just understood how to manipulate and how to make the most of opportunities on the 6 again rule. It's actually defensively that you get found out more. So it's not necessarily the amazing attacking offensive shape structure, you know, one-on-one type stuff that we know George Williams is good at. But it's actually the defenses, you know, who get found out after defending, like Vossy says, 12, possibly 18 consecutive tackles, and sheer weight of possession and sheer territory and field position, you're going to crack eventually. Even Melbourne Storm, who are the best defensive team in the world, you know, possibly in the history of rugby league, they got found wanting by a simple interpretation or a simple rule change. You know, it's I think it makes for really exciting times.
Yeah, look, never before. For you, Chris, as a coach, will you use the saying to your players, play what's in front of you? Again, stressing that, giving you that scenario of what happens. You know, it's tackle 5, so the halfback is getting ready, or the playmaker kicker is getting ready to put in a kick. The 2 wingers are dropped back, and suddenly the referee goes, you know, waves his hand and says, set, restart. You're back to 1, and the good playmaker sees, hang on, defensive line, there's the 2 flanks are out of play. Let's, you know, quick shift. Yeah, this is a very exciting element for the game that, you know, we're going to see how the teams do it. But again, you know, your George Williams and these sort of players that react quick. Mitchell Moses at Parramatta. Some other clubs found wanting him, and the Dragons were horrible, Chris, against the Warriors, really horrible. But, you know, Sean Johnson, if he could only return to his best form at Cronulla, he will revel in this. But he was pretty disappointing last night as well for Cronulla against the Tigers. But, you know, that's just the scenario. You're right. Monitor it. Let's see how it goes. Yeah. We've had 8 games on again Thursday night, Thursday morning your time, and pretty big match. Broncos Roosters, 2 great sides with playmakers, Anthony Milford and co playing, ready to go. Luke Keary for the Roosters. Let's see what they come up with week 2.
Just on that then, Vossy. You know, I know I've been watching, you know, in lockdown. Mate, my missus, we're close to being separated because I've watched that many games. But you know, I've watched games from the 80s and even further back. The RFL have been putting stuff up, and Rugby League Cares have been putting stuff up, and I'm sure it's similar in Australia, showing the archive games, and you've called games from the 80s and the 90s. And from my point of view, Vossy, it's like watching a different sport. Now this rule change now is almost, like I said, I've said the evolution of our sport again, but from the 80s, the 90s, you know, from going from 5 meters to 10 meters in terms of, you know, distance from the play of the ball. This rule could have that influence, like the 5 meter to 10 meter rule change, you know. So that we are actually living in the times of our game evolving, and I know we keep talking about it, but what we had 7-8 games or whatever, you know, it just gets the juices flowing, and you just, from my point of view, and you know, I think rugby league, especially in this country, it's a little bit different than the NRL. It's been in the doldrums a little bit, you know. We are looking at new, innovative ways of, you know, branding it, but you know, I just think this rule change could have such a dramatic impact on it.
Yeah, and the wrestle was the biggest blight on the game. And you go back to those late 80s, those games I called. So I called some matches from 1989, and what was amazing, you know, players got tackled, they got straight to their feet and played the ball. referee called scrum. They ran over, they packed the scrum quickly, and on we went. That doesn't happen anymore. Well, we've done things now to get. Oh, look, I honestly thought wrestling was into the game. It was an egg that once it's scrambled, you can't unscramble it. Well, they've come up with a way of combating the wrestle, and I don't think you'll eliminate it altogether because you can't. We're going to have 2 and 3 in every tackle, and some tackles you have 4. There's going to be a certain amount of wrestle, but just those manoeuvres and leg pulls and twists. The referees are now focused on that, but they're also in a position where they can just say, "All right, well, 6 to go, play. You're pulling his leg. I'm just going to go tackle, recount. Off we go. And if you do it a second time, I'm going to put you in the bin for repeated infringements." Well, great, let's do it. I know it puts pressure on the refs, but if they carry this out, it's different to other crackdowns, because when we've had crackdowns previously, that means penalties, that means stoppages. Here we've come up with a way to take action without bringing a stoppage. So, wow, this is gold. This is fantastic. Early evidence, really smart. Some clever men, smarter men than me, have come up with this solution.
So the match earlier today, I'd be interested in Chris and yours as well, Voss's thoughts on a couple of injuries, within 5 minutes of the start of the game. Was that rustiness? Because, was it technique? Did they get their head in the wrong place? It just seemed that, 2 of your key players to get injured so early in the match and maybe a little bit of rust there, Chris?
That's a bit tough, guys. I mean, Mitchell Pearce probably, in terms of his technique, it was big. I can't remember who carried the ball. Vossy might be able to help me there, but I know Kickout. It was basically Vielarmi. Kickout ran over Connor Watson, and look, I wouldn't want to put my hand up and put my body in front of him. I'll be honest, and that was probably a little bit unfortunate from Connor Watson's point of view. I think he rolled his ankle, and fair play. He tried to tough it out because he realised the circumstances that his team were in at that moment in time, but he couldn't, and they had to rotate and whatnot, and some debutants put their hands up. Randall made 71 tackles, I think, and Vossy can make the point about the.
It's a record on debut. Yeah. He's not the youngest. 24 years of age, making his first grade debut, and he gets thrown into the game after 4.5 minutes, and then has to play out 75.5 minutes, and almost makes that tackle a minute. Actually, the previous record for a player on debut in the NRL coming off the bench was James Grainer. In his very first game in the NRL, he made 48 tackles. And the highest record we'd had for any player on debut playing a full 80 was 50. Yep. This bloke Randall today has absolutely smashed all those records. So, that was a moment. Yeah. I don't think there was any more concussions or head knocks over the first round. I mean, I think they did pretty well. I think there were a couple of exceptions, but in the case, Canberra to me looked faster and stronger. Like Newcastle looked faster and stronger. And they've come through the period of training in isolation and then had this mini off-season for 4 weeks where contact work at training's been limited. I don't know whether you're across that, but sessions can't have any more than 10 with contact and all of that. So it's different for all the players. I think they've done a remarkable job right across, across the board with most teams.
Yeah, I mean, so what we're looking at, obviously, in this country, and the reason I asked the question was, player welfare. We went into lockdown, and we had a stuttering start. So we've gone through the pre-season, had a couple of 3 matches, and then bang, everything stopped. So the conversations in this country is around, how do we restart? When we do restart, and we still don't know when that will be, how do we do it? Do we have a little mini pre-season and so on? So I was just interested there from a player welfare point of view, as because it's pretty cruel to have the set restart and your big guys, but they're all brilliantly fit, and as with our guys, they're doing their own stuff, but there's nothing that can replace obviously the hit out in a match.
100%. And so normally when we've brought in a rule as radical as what we've just done, they've always trialled them through the under-20s competition. Or, it's been late in the season and they've applied it to games which won't have a bearing on the finals. I can't think of any rule change that we haven't, had some sort of dress rehearsal, whereas this weekend we've just gone bang and thrown in, reduced back to 1 referee and made this huge change to the modern-day fabric of the game, and it seemed to work. So, I dips my lid to everyone involved in it, the referees in particular. for carrying out what they've done. And I think it's going to get better over the next few weeks, unless the cheating coaches, Chris Thorman, you're one of those, unless you come up with a way to bend the rules, because every rule change has consequence. I know that. Unless you come up with some, out there plans, I think this is going to win.
And you had a couple.
Vossy, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, mate.
That's the words
That's my motto.
That's the cheat. Yeah.
Yeah. And just on the match this morning, so obviously what both teams needed was a Jamie Doran or a Carl Farber. Obviously under pressure on the drop goals. How many was there? Was it 8 or 9?
Yeah, well, we ended up with it because of Mitchell Pearce off the field, Kalen Ponga out injured. Penrith have Nathan Cleary suspended because of his TikTok indiscretions during lockdown. Fair dinkum, TikTok. So there wasn't a single player out on the field that had kicked the field goal in first grade, a drop goal, when it came to the crunch. So you had the young bloke for Penrith, Matt Burton. He was playing his second game of first grade. He took all the shots. He struck the ball well, just not straight. He hit one on the post.
He did. He hit the post. He did strike them well. You're right.
Like they're all 40-metre kicks. And then, but for Newcastle, they had Kurt Mann take a few, and he's an experienced player. But then he ended over to Tex Hoy. Tex Hoy was on debut. He was playing his first game, and then this pressure situation is trying to land field goals. So that was a sort of a part comical element to it. Then you got the players are out on their feet. It's their first game in 9 weeks, and they're going the 90 minutes. The tension, the drama, and I don't know what it would be like for them. This is with no crowd around them. I've got the sound effects in my ears, but they're on an empty ground, and they're playing this to the last man standing game. So look, it's something they'll be able to say. The blokes who made their debut today, you really will remember this forever, because it's a most unusual set of circumstances, and a 90-minute draw was the result. I'm not going to say it's not the most amazing game I've ever called, but I'll tell you what, it was just a bloody amazing game, and it just again brought out how good our sport can be. And this was without a host of stars playing. A heap of stars out. Newcastle probably had 6 out, and yet we had this quality of football and this drama and tension. And let's hope that in far-flung places, the people watching on Fox Sports 1 in America, watching rugby league for the first time, saying, "Hell, this sport's pretty good. Where's this come from?" It'd be great if they just got a glimpse of how good our sport is.
So you say, go on.
Sorry, guys. Just I know we keep talking about this game, but it's fresh. It's fresh in the mind, isn't it? It was, it was only a couple hours ago that it finished, but I thought that the most telling wasn't the number of missed opportunities of field goals. It was Tex Hoy went dummied, skipped to his left, hit Bradman Best, and then Bradman Best scored two great tries. He's going to be some player, by the way, and he's probably got the best name in rugby league too. But just that pass behind the winger, and just Edric Lee, and I'm thinking, honestly, they could have finished it there and then. They didn't even have to worry about Mitchell Pearce being off the field, Kalen Ponga not being in the team to kick field goals. If they just executed there, it's game over.
The result aside, without getting the win, they get the 1 point for the draw. Andrew Johns, no greater Newcastle player, arguably greatest player of all time, called it perhaps the most courageous performance in the history of the club. And he, of course, played in plenty and has seen plenty. Overcoming adversity, sticking in there, 14-0 down, injured players, all that out. So that was an enormous rap from a bloke who knows a bit about the Newcastle club. So some really good signs. And that's with a new coach, Adam O'Brien. He's in his first year as a head coach. He's had a good apprenticeship, but he's taken the reins of this side that have won more wooden spoons than done anything in recent times. And, the signs are there that he's done an outstanding job. He has changed the resolve, different defensive pattern. And today he proved he was prepared to put faith, what a coach's favourite job. One of your favourite jobs is giving young blokes a start and seeing them perform, really step up. Well, today he had 3 young blokes on debut, and they all, passed with flying colours. That would be a particularly pleasing thing for a rookie coach.
So obviously at Workington now we've got an absolute legend of the game, Fui Moi Moi. What's your memories of Fui when he was over there?
Fearless. It was at Parramatta that the crowd, every time he would touch the ball, Fui, and off they would go. Personality plus the look, the name, Fui Moi Moi. Close to one of a kind, really, in the modern game. I don't know whether there'll be another Fui Moi Moi because, and I do remember he would pull down the curtains that he couldn't speak English there for a little while. If he got too hard or someone put an interview, no, I can't speak, no, nothing. Whereas other times amongst his teammates, he'd be cracking jokes and be the life of the party. So very interesting character and playing style that was pretty ferocious. Like if Fui Moi Moi was playing and you knew he was about to get to the ball, that's not the time to look away. You wanted to be watching the kick-off return of Fui Moi Moi because something was going to happen.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up now because obviously it's getting on for 10 o'clock your time, and you've had 3 matches to call this week. You talked about not being the most amazing match, but one of the most amazing matches. What is the most amazing match you've called?
Well, really, look, I've got to say, and I'm not doing this just to suck up to our audience, but the 2013 World Cup, I will remember for as long as I live that night in Warrington where New Zealand played Samoa. And the Warrington crowd, I'd been tipped off by Matt King, who played at Warrington, said, look, you go to that ground, and I know it only holds, 17, 18, it'll feel like there's 50,000 there. And calling from the roof, above the terrace, you felt it. And the town adopted Samoa as their team. And they were getting flogged, they were getting touched up. But the more they were getting beaten, the more they lifted their support. And suddenly there were shoulder charges and blokes getting knocked over. And Samoa came back. And we had the Sonny Bill Williams moment where he slipped over the dead ball line. No more bigger bomb try in the history of the game. And the crowd went berserk and nuts. And they came back at them. That, to me, was right up there as one of the most amazing nights of rugby league. The impact that a crowd could have that are so passionate about the game of rugby league. They adopted a team as if it was their own. And then you roll back over the Rodney across the road after the game. That's outstanding. That's a great memory and an amazing game of rugby league.
Okay, Chris, we're going to wrap up now. So any final comments from you?
Oh, no, Gaz, when you mentioned that you were going to get Vossy on, I was just happy to kind of sit and observe and listen. And I should have had a pint, really, just to listen to some of his tales and his stories, because I always enjoy him calling games. And I've listened to all 3, I think, this weekend. So just from my point of view, Vossy, really grateful that you've given up your time for working in town. And I know you acknowledge the small towns in the north of England as much as any commentator on Super League or the NRL. So we're really grateful for your time. I've really enjoyed listening to you. So all the best for the rest of the season. And let's hope that all the things that we've discussed, it just makes for a better brand and more successful in terms of our rugby league.
Well, when I say there are things that you can copy off the NRL, there is something that Australian Rugby League can copy off rugby league across the north of England, and that's the passion, the respect for history. And, I'm sure Workington Town, when you look back to the history of the 50s and all of that, you respect your history more than we do. And I put my hands up, we just don't do it. And you go along the grounds of Warrington and you see the statues and you see the murals of the historic moments of the club. We just don't have that here. We could learn so much off and not just the big clubs in England. I'm talking about learning off Workington and the good people at Halifax and Whitehaven and all these places. That passion, that respect for history is something that I hold dear to my heart. I'm jealous of, and I'd love to be a part of it on a more regular basis sometimes. So anytime that you want me to come on and spread the word of rugby league to the people of Workington, only too happy to do it.
Appreciate it. Could you just turn your camera around to your Rabbitohs jersey on the wall there?
That is a Legends jersey of the Rabbitohs. That was actually given to me by the National Rugby League many years ago for just doing events for them for free, and it's just a treasured possession. Everything that I've sort of been given over the years, I've actually given away to fundraisers, but this is one that I just didn't want to give away. Among the signatures on that, the likes of Bob McCarthy, Mike Cleary, Jack Rayner, Les Davidson, Ian Roberts, George Piggins, John Sattler. Rabbitohs Legends is the jersey, and it's a personal favourite. As I was a Rabbitohs fan as a kid, but as a league lover, that's a very treasured piece. But I do have some other crap around here I could show you. My wife sort of cleaned up because she said, you're doing stuff on to tidy up. She's moved a lot of my bits and pieces, but I have collected a lot of stuff over the years, and some of it's probably worth, well, if it was worth $1 back then, it's probably worth 50 cents now.
Well, I like symmetry, so our 75th anniversary shirt is fairly similar to the Rabbitohs.
Yes.
So if I send this across to you, will you put it on the wall and then get you back on? Would that be? Okay?
I will do the piece to camera, and when the game returns, I will do the call to arms for Workington Town supporters everywhere, and those that have never gone to a game to come out and follow, and I will be there in spirit with you all.
Excellent. Vossy, you're a legend, you're a gentleman, and we really appreciate you coming on for Workington Town. Enjoy your well-earned rest this evening.
I can't wait for the next round to start. That's how good it is. You know, if they want to play a game Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, I'm ready. I'm ready.
You're an absolute joy to listen to. We appreciate it. You take care.
Thanks, Ben, and Kelly-ho, and let's hope you're out of lockdown soon and things get back to normal.
Up the town.
Thanks, mate. Take
Thanks,
care.
mate.